Hi and welcome to Lee on the Lectionary. Today we're looking at the readings for the fourth Sunday of Easter in Year B. And those readings are Acts chapter 4 verses 5 to 12, 1 John chapter 3 verse 16 to 24, and John chapter 10 verses 11 to 18. Our readings this week rivet our attention on the voluntary self-giving of Christ for his people, which marks out a way for all of us to follow in building and pastoring the church. In John 10, the great shepherd of the sheep, as he's called in Hebrews, defines his role as the good shepherd. He is not a mercenary taking the pay or the glory or the stipend or the parsonage without caring enough to give his life. He knows the sheep deeply and profoundly, and so lays down his life for each of them by name. Speaking to Jews, he tells them that there are other sheep who belong to him in other folds, and that his plan is to build a united church. He will unite Gentiles to Jews in one fold, in him, one flock, one shepherd. This will happen as his voice is heard, because wherever they are, his sheep know his voice and will hearken to it as a sound they know and trust. That voice will ring out once he has both laid down his life and taken it up again, he says, emphasizing his sovereign control over the whole process. In Acts chapter 4, we have one of the clearest statements of Christ's uniqueness in the New Testament. There is salvation in no one else, says Peter, filled with the Holy Spirit. There is no other name under heaven by which we can be saved but the name Jesus. He is the only way, the one true shepherd. And yet, this is said in a context where the very people being addressed had been responsible just a little while beforehand for the crucifixion of the God-man, the way, the truth, the life. He was indeed the cornerstone of God's plan of redemption, and yet they'd rejected him as worthless, good for nothing. So Peter challenges them with these uncomfortable truths and questions the way that they wish to build the church. He did not lay down his life for them to lay down another cornerstone. He did not lay down his life needlessly, because there was no other way by which men and women could be saved. In 1 John chapter 3, that act of wicked rejection and power-grabbing cruelty is presented not as an act of foolish men, but as a sovereign act of divine grace. Jesus laid down his life. He did not lose it in an unfortunate accident or by chance or by plot. It was by design. He gave up his life willingly and voluntarily. And that selfless moment at the end of a selfless life provides the model for believers to follow. Jesus has left us a template to follow, a stencil, and it is cross-shaped. But John does not leave that idea floating in the air like an abstract theological axiom. He applies it very directly. If the cross shows us what love is, and you claim God's love abides in you, then how can you refuse to help a brother or a sister in need? For Christ did not ignore or neglect our need, or love us in words and empty political promises. He loved us in truth and action, as we must please God in the power of the Spirit by loving others in the flock and a family of God. If they obey his commandments, they abide in him. And if they abide in him, we cannot be deaf, dumb, or blind, but come to their aid in time of need.